Hello everybody, this is Frogman and welcome back to Manufactio. This is going to be episode 60. Well, we've done quite a bit of work over the last 45 or so episodes since the last world walkthrough, and there's been quite a few changes, plus a bunch of additions. I can't recall whether, I think that was in the last walkthrough, I'm pretty sure. So we need to kind of do a little bit of wandering around and explaining. I've had a lot of questions, and we've had a lot of discussion lately about various parts and processes of these factories, so I figure it's a good time to probably just do a walk around and a short explanation of various things in the factory as far as the things that I've created, done, and automated. So I want to say thank you guys for all of your support and all of your comments early on, because it's been a lot of fun. This is one of those little projects that I kind of figured I would give a whirl, and then, you know, it's just been kind of just slowly growing over time, and I've been enjoying it. So I want to thank you guys early on just so that we can kind of get this started. So let's go ahead and kind of get back into what we're going to be talking about. So get out of that mode, because I hate talking to myself. Not that I don't do it every single day. Alrighty then, so we are starting up on top of the greenhouse, and the initial challenge that I wanted to do as far as this pack was concerned on this playthrough is something that I've been having to do a lot lately with just modded Minecraft in general, which is I've been having to give myself an initial challenge. So something like, say, don't use a specific mod through a normal kitchen sink pack. Pick something else that you haven't done, or do something differently to make it different. Change things up, make it fun again, kind of a deal. This pack gives us plenty of opportunity to do things differently, and I'm going to have to shut that bird up. So this pack gives us plenty of opportunity to do things differently because of the way we automate, and because of the processes, and the fact we have to automate almost every single step in every single part of every single production line just to be able to get the research that you want. So you don't have to do all of the automations that I do. You don't have to do all the craziness that I do, but for what it's worth, it definitely just is nice to be able to walk into a system and have all the stuff pre-crafted and ready to go, so that you don't have to sit there and handcraft things or wait on things because of applied energistic system taking forever to do stuff. So the initial challenge that I wanted to do this playthrough was that I wanted to try to make a somewhat factory-like complex where every little area of each process had its own building. So like in that one over there, that's our smelting, and the smelting's over there, the plate presses, the wire gears, presses, all that kind of stuff is in that building. That building is circuits. This one is our advanced ore processing system. This is the science buildings component building, or what you would call a mall kind of a deal. So we make all of the components that we aren't creating anywhere else to make science in that building, and we also make the science in that building. This little building right here is my charcoal factory. These guys are, of course, my diesel generators, and of course out there is the stone cobblestone works kind of thing. So back here we're doing Emc Production. That is my spaceport for my rocket, which is currently not rendering. And this little thing right here is my sulfuric acid or acid processing thing. This is where we do all of the sulfuric acid and various things like that. And of course, the monster system that is required to keep the fusion reactor from mechanism running. So the reactor is in that building. That's the Deuterium building, and that's the Tritium building over there. We can't quite see it from behind it. And of course the mob farm and all of the other fun stuff. There's a little bitty building right there that we use mob parts and XP to make oil. That dude right over there, do I still have this? Yeah, that dude right over there is my villager breeder from back in the day that is still here. And of course, way over there is my oil processing stuff. So I wanted to kind of do that because of the fact that if you build buildings, you have a place to capture the pollution before it gets up here. So you're not chasing it all over the place, which also means that a thing like a greenhouse, where you pump all of the pollution back into a central location from the entire area, can then be utilized to bone meal crops. So that's the general basis of what I was trying to do as far as a discussion, or as far as the challenge for myself. I wanted to have buildings for every process, and then I wanted to be able to capture as much of the pollution as I possibly could and use it to bone meal crops so that I can run my base. And up until just recently, or like the completion of that thing over there, which was just a couple episodes ago, we were using pretty much nothing but plant power pretty much nothing but green power. I think the only things that we were powering up until just recently that were not using a green or a renewable resource was the reactors that we have in that building to run the the one or two excavators that we have on one of the moons to be able to mine some stuff. So for the majority of my playthrough, I have been using literal renewable resources to power this monstrosity of a base. At one point, we had over 140,000 RF a tick just in green resources. So we'll take a look at all that here in just a second. So let's get on down to the floor here. Bonk. As you can see, we have rail lines everywhere that are pretty well, back in the day, we did a lot of rail work. There were mine carts everywhere. We had train stations everywhere. And then the advent of quantum entangle porters from Mechanism came in, and we started using those instead of mine carts, which, you know, it is what it is as far as things go. So this is the workshop, or at least this is where I kind of consider my workshop to be. This is where I have my storage for my applied energistics system. This is where we have our terminals and all those kinds of things. And the main controller, this is the primary controller for the entire system. So I am pretty much applied energistics based right now as far as logistics. We had item ducts at one point. We had item ducts everywhere around this base. And I made the decision when it was time to choose which type of logistics we wanted to do at the point where we hit, what is it? Let's go down here. Logistics, between logistics pipes and applied energistics, I went applied energistics just because I really didn't feel like rebuilding my logistics twice once we got to this stage. So because you have a choice. If you like logistics pipes, you can go to logistics pipes. If you like applied energistics, you can go straight to applied energistics. You do have to unlock logistics pipes in order to get some of the stuff from the rest of the stuff from applied energistics, but it is what it is at that point. So the workshop is just an area where we kind of can AFK safely for the most part. I can stand in the middle of this, and all of these blocks are non-diggable. Plus, I am 3 blocks away from every wall in here, so no creepers can explode me through the walls. And yes, I'm playing on regular difficulty modes. The world is set to normal, and I have not changed any mob spawn configuration in this world. So yeah, I just deal with them with turrets and lots and lots and lots of glowstone and lots of spawn protection like these lights. So let's go to the first major step in the process, which is the way we usually handle things. I am currently mining from these two chunks right here because of this chunk. I think this is all in one chunk right now, actually. Yeah, it's all in one chunk. And I have been living off of the challenges in here for quite a long time. Matter of fact, the majority of these challenges we've handed in, and they've been feeding this factory. I haven't actually gone out and mined anything as far as resources for this base in a really long time. I'm probably since episode 40 or 30 or something have we been just mining from either right here or over there where we had a little mining outpost at one point. But the miners are also right directly next to our ore processing building, which is where we have a bunch of applied immersive engineering crushers. And this is my current ore storage process right here, where we have a large back stock of various ores, which I kind of am getting a little bit low on iron ore, but that's okay. We can get some more of that eventually. Of course, that system is all controlled by the applied energistics system using level emitters. So when we run low on a specific crushed ore, it will turn on an item conduit servo here, or item duct servo here, so that it will then just feed a reasonable round robin amount into various things up here. I'm controlling all of these crushers with redstone. And let's see if I can get around the corner so we can kind of see it. Look down in there. Every one of these guys has a timer on top set to about 2 ticks. I think it's a little less than 2 ticks. 2 seconds, a little less than 2 seconds. These guys can actually run very quickly because I'm feeding them lubricant to speed them up. That timer is then dropped into, or is then controlling a dropper, which I'm using a vanilla dropper here because of the fact that it randomizes out of each of these 9 slots, so I can crush multiple ores at the same time. Those are then dropped into a chute that are dropped into this crusher because I do not want to sit here and backstuff these crushers. I just want to be able to have them running only when I need them. So that is the crushing building. Let us walk next door to the smelting building. And I am still, after all this time, using the blast furnaces because the blast furnaces are faster than most everything else that we have available. Yes, it gets incredibly laggy in here because of all the item ducts and all of the pollution, but these guys are still one of the fastest modes of smelting things in this pack until you start playing with mechanism. They're faster than an improved blast furnace. So they cost more power. I don't care. And they require fuel. Again, I don't care. I have an infinite amount of fuel. In here, we're also storing all of the smelted or smeltable stuff like pulverized metals and whatnot. I'm keeping around 50,000 of each on hand, although for some odd reason we have quite a bit of silver, which is no big deal. We're also up on this side of the building crafting or making steel, which this process over here I may be changing out for the mechanism way soon-ish because of the fact that it's still, even with the preheaters and all of this stuff, they're still pretty slow. We have 6 blast furnaces supporting 3 blast furnaces, and they're still just a little slow for my liking. It's just one of those, I've been doing that for a long time, and I can definitely make a change on this side. As far as this side goes, I may end up just leaving it the way that it sits for a while. I mean, I could definitely do a little bit more processing, but I don't really see a need to change away from this just due to the fact that it is so fast. So let's go next door, and next door is going to be the beginnings of small component processing. So in this floor on this building here, we are crafting steel plates using 5 regular IE presses. We are crafting iron plates using 18 presses, and this is still too slow. I'm going to actually have to start working on upgrading this stuff because of the recent changes we have made. This is not fast enough anymore. Over here, we're making the gold wire with a few presses, which is very simple. You can just feed the plate right straight into the next one, and if you redstone control everything correctly, all of the plate systems will stop at the same time when this gets to a certain thing. So fun part of that stuff. So the reason why we're having problems again with iron plates is the fact that I'm directly using the iron plates I make over here for this process. So that means that like 8 out of these presses over here are supporting these guys when they run. So it's a 2-to-1 process here. And I probably could make these guys a lot better, or at least I could make this process a lot better if I gave them their own iron presses, but we don't really need to worry about that right now. Recent updates as far as things go, and you guys should be getting this little bitty recipe here pretty soon with the next update, hopefully, is that I have changed out all of the plate presses that we had up here for copper wire. So we had copper plates and copper wire. Golrith gave us a nice recipe for a copper rod into copper wire using the lathes, which quadruples the amount of cable or the wire you get now. So once you get these things, this is the direction you need to go with this process, because this is so much faster and it's so much easier on your computer. It's just it's so much better. So on the other side of the room, we have all of our auto crafting for the applied energistic system. I don't even think it's even remotely full. This is how I build my stacks. I know they kind of take up a lot of space, but I like the crafts to happen very quickly. So along with that, I should say, we have 4 of the computers, or the processing or crafting processing CPU thingies over here, and all of them man, the allergies today are great. All of them have coprocessors in them to allow them to be able to use those guys, and I do need to upgrade these and make them a little bigger, at least a little better. But in the basement in here was where, I think about episode 4 or 5, I forget exactly, we built out the red, the green, and the blue science early game using magnetic craft belts. and that has been gone for a really long time. This is actually where we had a lot of the redstone control for the majority of the system before we got all the applied energistics. So this basement has served many purposes as far as the factory goes. It's currently serving storage space room for those guys and all of my deep storage for the applied energistics system. So this is where we have a bunch of just storage buses with a whole bunch of bins sitting in here hanging on to various parts and pieces for us. So that's the story in here. And I think the only thing that really has kind of changed in this building is I used to have a whole bunch of villagers up here, and everybody asked me, where did I get all the glowstone? Where did you get all the ender pearls? Where do you get various things? Villagers, i.e. villagers. They have, the original thought with this process was that we were going to use villagers to farm, hi guys, villagers to farm our crops for us to be able to supply us power for the biogenerators that we use to power the base early game. And a side effect of that is that trading with villagers is very, very, very OP in this pack. Very OP, because you can get all kinds of really, 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 really good stuff from them. I don't have them anymore because, well, I didn't need them anymore, and they were causing, various problems. They're an entity that hangs out in the world all the time, so they're not the greatest thing in the world to keep around. So, and this thing right here, this thing right here, you see these 3 or 4 zombies? Or 4, heck, there's quite a few of them, sounds like. We've got somebody else. Oh, he just fell down. This is a new thing with the recent update that is supposed to help out with the drone spawns. And I don't really know. I may end up changing it back because we'll go look at these guys real quick. The reason why that one's not moving, probably, is he's a pretty healthy zombie. And the reason why these 2 guys aren't moving is because they're both 1,000 hit point zombies. And this guy's a regular old everyday zombie. Hi, can I interest you in that? I missed. Hang on. Oh, crud. Goodbye. And they just sit here. They don't do anything. They don't move. They just take up mob cap, pretty much. So they're supposed to be super slow, and they're definitely super slow. So that might be something that needs to be adjusted, but that's just because the local difficulty in my world is so high. But anyhow, back on track. After we process all of this kind of stuff in here, we then go into the circuit factory, this is where we make the majority of the circuits. So we're using, about 8 regular standard assemblers to craft green circuits. And this building is fed with the applied energistics system using this interface right here that has all kinds of stuff in it. So this has been in the pack, or I should say, this has been in my world for a long time. It's been updated and upgraded many times, and we're probably going to be looking at upgrading and updating it here very soon, at least for the red circuits. We have the red circuits that are crafted over here. I recently went in and added a few speed modules into these guys because they are not very fast anymore. We can definitely do better in this side of it here as far as speed and item usage using engineers' workbenches, and I will probably be doing that fairly shortly. I have no interest, well, before we even get to that point, I have no interest making greens and reds in these things. These things right here are super expensive to make that stuff in. So it's cheaper and easier to automate. It might take a little bit more parts, but it's cheaper and easier to automate it overall using these guys for the reds and greens than it is for these things. Now, when we get to the blue science stuff, or I should say the blue circuits are cheaper and easier to make in one of these. So purple circuits, we do need to get a purple circuit system up here. Currently I have them on autocraft with the applied energistics system. But yeah, purple circuits are over in the, these things. I'm calling them purple circuits, and they're pink circuits. Ultimate control circuits. Those are made in the main system over there. We'll go take a look at that in a bit. All of these guys are and have been redstone controlled since day one based off of an inventory. Originally, we had a silo in this place and in that place, and we had a lot of redstone in the basement down here. There's a little bitty cubby underneath this hole that controlled the amount of items that these guys were allowed to produce compared to this inventory. Now we're using the applied energistics system to basically do the same thing. Am I going to have to set it to peaceful? just so we can get through this. Good Lord. And of course, every one of these machines is turned on and off by a redstone signal. It's based off of the applied energistics system. So, and like I say, as we noticed before, all of the buildings all have a kind of a collection area and a collection system for pollution. We will look at the pollution at the end of the end of the walkthrough. I keep saying pack, and I don't know why. We'll look at the pollution at the end of the walkthrough because basically the system is going to have to drive us to the center of the base to be able to see things. So let's walk into this building, and I'm going to close the door in case something walks in. This is what I am calling my advanced ore processing building. So this is an area where we do processing of titanium, processing of uranium, processing of unusual ore, the more advanced ores. This is where we do all of that processing. So titanium is done in this reaction chamber and is then smelted in this arc furnace. The titanium alumide, whatever this stuff is right here, titanium alumide or aluminide, whatever you want to have, tongue twister thing, kinds of stuff like that. It's early for me to be trying to talk. Is processed using this fluid assembler, which has a max upgrade efficiency module and a max upgrade speed module on it, because now it actually keeps up with things. That process is then fed into this arc furnace where we have a little bit of this leftover stuff in here, and then of course processed to here. The final product in here, as far as ingots are concerned, is the osma titanium alumide steel, aluminiide steel, however you want to say it. And that again is just a couple of, it's just an alloy of this osmium steel and the titanium alumide ingots. So this stuff over here. And that's why he's here, is he's just doing the process for that thing. In this corner, we are where's my wrench? Let's fix that real quick. I don't know why your back stuff. Wrench. No. Thank you. Don't do that. Bad item duct. Bad item duct. Anyhow, in this corner is where we are producing the production line for the unusual crystals. These guys are right here. That requires resonant ender, which we are making in this mixer using the ender pearl recipe, because I have an enderman farm and we're going to go look at it. So it's just easier for me to use ender pearls than it is the other process. So this then gets fed into a chemical plant that is taking the ores and making the crystals out of this. And this is the small amount of storage that we have for various other products in this building. On this row here is the beginnings of the nuclear or this kind of stuff here, uranium processing. So in this chemical plant, we are processing uranium ore into yellow cake. Yellow cake is then dumped into this crusher to produce the uranium-238 and the occasional uranium-235. 235 and 238 are combined in these two, whatever they call these guys, reprocessors, which basically takes a certain amount of the 238 and mixes it with the 235, and we get one extra. So it's a cycle that will eventually give you plenty of stuff. Currently, they're set to start working once we hit 1,000 of those, and we're kind of hanging out over there, pretty reasonable. This third reprocessor basically takes the fuel rods or spent fuel cells from the reactors that we're really not using and converts them back into 238. And of course, this little guy right here processes the various products to make the uranium fuel cells. So that's pretty much this building. This is the building that I did use the logistics drones in for a while, and they worked perfectly fine. The only problem that I kept having with them is that they decided after a while that they didn't want to charge themselves, so I would come in here and find them just laying around on the ground not doing anything, and this entire building stopped. So we did convert this one over to applied energistics as well. So we will be taking a look at various systems in here. This is one of the other larger, more complicated applied energistics system I am using. I guess since we're here we can talk about it. We are using subnetting instead of P2P because we don't have P2P in this pack. So we subnet out to various areas, and of course this is the orange subnet for the base. So I'm using color coding across the entire system so that I know exactly what I'm looking at. But that's basically how everything works, and I'm using that for the logistics purposes of it for the most part. They're not really being used for anything other than that. There's a little bit of auto crafting in the main building. For the most part, all of the buildings have logistics done through applied energistics because it's the fastest process. It's the fastest logistics system we have. So let's go over to the sulfur and sulfuric acid processing building. This building is, of course, where we make sulfuric acid. So there is the initial process of making sulfuric acid with sulfur and pulverized iron, which we have one of these guys left. I did move on to the mechanism process, where this is a little bit better. The reason why you want to go towards the mechanism process is because it is considerably cheaper on the sulfur. And sulfur, as anybody that knows how to create sulfur in this pack, is kind of expensive because of the amount of oil that it takes to craft. So once you get to this technology, it's highly worth it to get to that point. So I'm not even going to walk through this. It's a mess. It's fun, but whatever. In this corner over here, we are producing the process that is required to make the what is it? Oh yeah, the alien goo, I think is what it is. Alien goo. Let's check that out real quick. And yeah, this is what we're doing here. We're using this to create the alien goo. So alien goo for the resonant ender recipe. So that's basically done with a little bit of redstone and a little bit of sulfuric acid in a mixer to make resin, or what is this? Destabilized redstone. That's all pumped into a chemical plant that is then uses a little bit of liquid XP. If I can get back here, which we have plenty of liquid XP. Stupid things. Anyhow, to make the alien goose. Right here, we're using another mixer and a mechanism crusher that is taking biofuel. We're taking the biofuel, the gunpowder, and we're using that to make creeper acid. So pretty simple, pretty easy. Nothing really hard. I recommend this recipe over the other one because this recipe saves on sulfuric acid. So definitely do it this way if you can. In this back corner here is a little thing that is going to start talking about the thing that we're probably going to look at here in just a second or two is pollution control, pollution resource collection. So we just heard a bunch of pistons, things go off. In that building, I have a pollution collection system that itemizes the pollution into small, into the blocks, into the actual blocks, and it looks like it's broken again. What I do with those blocks is I then pump the sulfur pollution over to this area, and I cannot wait for computer craft. I want to see if I can actually make this work with that. We pump the sulfur pollution in over into this building and expose it to water. And when you expose sulfur pollution to water, it turns into polluted water. And we do that down here with a fancy little redneck redstone mess of some block placers and some vents and chimneys that lead up into that water pool. So pretty much simple, pretty easy kind of thing. The polluted water, you can then take it, of course I'm using dispensers and buckets to collect it. You can take the polluted water and you can run polluted water through a chemical plant. Let's just look at this. Polluted water, I can run that through a chemical plant and I get a piece of sulfur if I give it a gas filter, and I get a little bit of water back. So this is how I'm not washing filters at all in this base, because every little bit of the pollution that I'm producing, I'm using for a resource production line somewhere. So that's how I'm getting rid of the sulfur. We'll look at the collection system here in a little bit, but that's basically where all the sulfur goes. It ends up in this little pool. It's turned into polluted water, which is then unbarreled or unbucketed by these, what are they, unloaders, fluid unloaders? Can I get there? They're unloaded by these fluid unloaders, which that doesn't need to connect. That's interesting. That are then set into that tank, into these chemical plants, and then the water is then recycled back into the system by these guys over here and other buildings in the area. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go on around the rest of the greenhouse here, and then we'll start branching out once we get to the areas. This is for sure a building that I know was not in the other walkthrough, so this is my general EMC production building. We've managed to use up all of the redstone that was in here as far as this chunk with an excavator, and the redstone that was over here with the excavator, and I'm currently working on iron over there. I need to go ahead and get another redstone system set up so that we're making iron, making EMC. But the basic process for what I'm doing is I'm using Hellforges to basically double the EMC before we make more EMC, or before we make dark matter. So Hellforges, if we look at Hellforges, if you take a various process like this, Notice how this one makes no more EMC. This one makes no more EMC. Redstone into glowstone. I'm doubling the EMC. So I'd originally using a bunch of machines in here to take redstone and then turn it into glowstone and then turn that into EMC. We're currently doing iron ingots into gold ingots using some of these hell forges, but we have, I think, what is it, 16 hell forges in here that are doing the process. So what happens is currently the iron is coming into this advanced enriching factory. We're taking the iron, of course, we're smelting the iron, we're smelting anything else we get out of that deposit over there. The iron is sent into these guys to be converted into gold, and then it's then sent into this condenser to be turned into, of course, dark matter. Anything else like the nickel and whatnot just immediately goes into this condenser. On this side, this was the redstone processing side, and also the, I forget, platinum, however, whatever else comes out of a redstone deposit. So what we do is we take the enriching factory here, and of course we bust that down into as much redstone as possible. We put that into that bin. The bin then takes it and puts it into all of these guys over here that are then process the redstone into glowstone. The glowstone is then taken into this little guy right here where he is converted into blocks because it's just quicker to have it processed the blocks instead of the individual powders. On the roof, I have changed this. I was originally using this to make iron. We're now using it to make redstone because we don't have any redstone deposits, but I have a whole bunch of Energy Mark IIs as far as the power flowers. There's a couple of Mark 1s left in here, but this is a kind of a power flower. It works okay. In the center there is a... Where is it? Right there. There's a condenser right here that is basically taking all the energy that this can make and turns it into redstone that is then pumped back into the building for now. We need to make more of these. That was totally lucky. We need to make more of these. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but we need to make more of these. So that's the EMC building, EMC production. So let's go over here to the old power generation area. And I'm going to walk through this area kind of slow because I'm pretty sure everybody wants to see some of this. So the first thing I am going to do is that this initial portion is getting a little long. So we're going to end this recording and I'm going to come right back. Okay, so yeah, that was about as long as I thought it was. Anyhow, on to the initial and more or less early late game power generation system that we have, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this down just a little bit because it's loud over here. Actually, I think the blocks is what I want. This area is where I have been producing power for quite a long time. So the way that I have been using the diesel gens, and we'll get into that in a second, is that in my greenhouse I have dark oak trees, and I actually had spruce trees in here at one point in time too. Plus we have various plants that are eating up the carbon pollution in this building. So this is last. We'll talk about this building last. I just wanted to say this is where I'm getting the wood from. The wood is then stored in these silos. The silo then deposits the wood into a whole bunch of vanilla furnaces. The vanilla furnaces, of course, they output out the bottom, so we run the line all the way down the bottom, out the back on this side, and then, of course, all the way down to the compactor, so that way the furnaces get fed fuel before the compactor does, so they should all be full of charcoal, and they are all full of good stuff. That charcoal is then sent into this compactor where it is compacted into charcoal blocks. The charcoal blocks are then sent into this silo where this silo is storing the fuel for these guys. This one this one generator is running because I can't get to the redstone block on it. And that's fine because there's still some things on this network that we need this guy to keep running. He's keeping my lights on over here, and he's powering this building and a few other things. I think he's actually running the miner for the diamonds, which is over there. These generators, there's 16 of them if I recall correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, there's 20 of them. Man, I can't count for nothing. Anyhow, the generators, this is very simple. We feed the charcoal out of the back of this, out of the bottom of this silo across the top to the hatches that go to the generators. The generators all now, at one point I was feeding this entire mess with a pump station out there, and I was finding that IE piping, especially when you run it over long distance and through various processes, can become very, very, very TPS nasty. Meaning if you have long runs of that stuff, which there's a couple of places. I mean, I have runs everywhere as far as IE pipe is concerned, just mainly for decoration. But if you are starting to notice a major drop in TPS, shut your pumps off and see what happens. because it definitely made a major difference. Anyhow, over to here. All of these guys are currently set up so that they each have 2 pumps. 1 pump per generator so that I get enough water into the system. Of course, the pumps are sitting on a infinite water source. They're fed off of this line, so the generators are feeding themselves pretty much to keep things up. The steam is pumped out of a vent using thermal ducts, and those are the hardened ducts. They immediately put right into the side of the generator, and of course the generators, the reason why I built that boiler that size is because you can sit 2 generators on top of it neatly. That's the only reason why I made them that big, because technically speaking, a 5x5x2 boiler will run those no problem. So at least 2 of them. As it is right now, those guys have probably about more steam production, I should say a little bit more steam production, enough to be able to run maybe 1 more of these. So technically that boiler is too big, but that's okay. So everybody wants to know how these are made. This is the general back portion of it. This is what it looks like, how I have this side of this system set up. And of course, on the other side over here, it's pretty simple. Let's just go down here where it's quieter. It's pretty simple. They just sit on top of it, and I have the controller to the side so that I can then take the particles and the smoke and the pollution and put it into a chimney. You can put that wherever you want it. I just got really tired of that, which I still haven't put any chimneys on this one. But anyhow, on these guys over here, these are a little different. The fluid enters into the sides of them, just because I didn't want the fluid in my road back here. So that's the way those work. And of course, all of this power is sent to a quantum entangled porter that is then fed into this induction matrix. And this one is full. This is my backup system. So if we have a problem with our other big generator over there, we can fire this back up and the base will come back online. So this is going to be backup. This is going to be spare. I'm not going to feed this whole entire system into that other matrix that we have. So the other thing is I'm also using, or have been using, the advanced biogenerators to make power, because we were still having a considerable amount of excess of just general food products like carrots and potatoes and wheat and other things. So these guys make a decent amount of power. They make as much power as one of these generators do, and they also produce several byproducts. I don't have any of this stuff. I think we dub it. Yeah, we still do. They produce fertilizer as a byproduct, and they also produce biomass, which biomass you can burn in a biogas engine with a little bit of lava to make a little bit more power. So that's how they make 2,100 power or whatever. It's because you're making up the difference with these 2 guys. This is how you get rid of that. Other than that, over here, we have the cobble works, what I'm calling a cobble works. So we're crafting a gravel, which I have an ungodly amount of gravel because of various reasons. Cobblestone, using the cobblestone 5000 generator thingy multi-block structure. So that's where we're getting the cobblestone from. There is a massive lava lake underneath of us here that has a pump on it that's pumping the lava up into this tank. This cobblestone is then smelted into smooth stone using a blast furnace and a single preheater. This stuff is then sent into this blast furnace to make the hardened stone, and again another preheater, and of course the hardened stone is then sent into this blast furnace to make the hardened stone bricks. And of course another little bitty applied energistic system over here just to kind of maintain things. We used to have a rail yard out here. It is now gone. Rails, we're almost done with them at this point. I could easily walk away from every bit of rail that I have, I think, at this point, if I wanted to just send things on various channels using quantum entangled porters. So we don't do that right now. We're just kind of still playing around with various things. So alrighty, onto the newest project, and I guess we can start with the manufacturing processes of various stuff. If you guys were watching last episode, we made the mechanism process for creating plastic. I'm not going to go through it, but I just wanted to say that we kind of need a little bit of help here because of the fact these PRCs that are taking the substrate and making plastic, plastic pellets or HDPE pellets, these guys don't have enough of an internal buffer to take more than 1 speed upgrade. So I'm going to have to research and open up energy upgrades just to be able to make this process faster, because I had to go ahead and craft another one just to be able to make this reasonably quick. So it's a pretty simple process. We take we take a bioprocessing thing or something that can make biofuel. We take that and we stuff it into a pressurized reaction chamber to make the substrate and various other things. That is then crammed into the 2 pressurized reaction chambers here that are making the HDPE pellets that are then sent into an enrichment chamber, which makes the plastic sheets or the HDPE sheets that are then rolled into plastic sheets, and we're doing pretty good on that. But yeah, this I don't know what to do with that. I may have to make more of these. I don't know. They're cheap to run. They have very zero power problems. But if you try to put more than one speed upgrade in them, their energy buffers are not big enough to be able to handle it. If you look at it, it has, we're on Tesla. Why are we on Tesla? There we go. If you look at it, its energy buffer is 800 RF. 800, it's using 746 of that right now. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we get energy buffers or energy upgrades, is because they allow us to be able to extend this process. Not a big deal. It's just, in order to make this any better, I'm going to have to probably double this, because I can put energy upgrades in this one at least a little bit more. Our energy upgrades, speed upgrades, and I can put speed upgrades in this guy all day long. So anyhow, we're not going to work on that process. We're going to go ahead and look at the manufacturing building from the beginning to the end. So this is my mall area slash manufacturing slash science building. So on the bottom floor here, we have all of the processes that we have that we're not crafting things elsewhere for science. So in this assembler, we're making the various parts that we need for what is this, production research and motors, and of course red science. This machine here is making the inserters. Over here we are making packaged power drills. These guys are making the motors. This one should be making the electric engines. This one here should be making the redstone batteries. This machine here is making silicon wafers for applied energistics. And this is my general overall, just if I need something to be crafted using something like this. This is the easiest way to clean ME glass cable, is one of these guys. You just feed it water and you give it a recipe and it does whatever it needs to do. We'll get to that line in a second. Around this corner over here, I have the guy that is, he's off. Why are you off? You need to run, dude. Go. This should be making grenades, and this should be making pistol ammo. I guess I forgot to turn them on. The 2 carpenters, or the advanced carpenters right here, are what I'm using to make regular concrete. And yes, I'm using the hard recipe because I have mountains of slag. So, of course, you take a little bit of dirt and a little bit of slag, and that turns into a lot of clay, or a little bit of clay. And of course you take a little bit of slag and a little bit of gravel and a little bit of clay, and you can make concrete. I have mountains of dirt, and dirt is producible. You can craft it, so it's not a big problem. We have a few tech guns presses here, ammo presses, mainly for shotgun ammo and for the rifle rounds, and then for the titanium plates that we need in this metal press. I probably could take these out because I don't use that shotgun anymore, so it's one of those kind of deals. We walk down here. I'm kind of skipping things for various reasons so that we can see what we do in the rest of the building. So these 2 guys over here, these 2 electric furnaces, this one is making glass, this one is making the quartz glass, and this blast furnace is taking sand and smelting it into silicon for the applied energistics system. In this machine, this assembler, this precision assembler here, we are making these various patterns, and this is set to autocraft via the AE system. In this crystallizer, what is an unfamiliar item? Whatever. That's weird. Whatever. In this crystallizer, we are crafting the, what is this, fluix crystals and the regular Certus quartz crystals. And of course, with this charger, we're using the Certus quartz crystals to process and make the charged Certus quartz crystals. So I think once we do this here, we're going to be starting into the rest of the things. So let's just go ahead and do the round robin around the rest of this floor, and then we can go upstairs. Of course, auto crafting crusher recipes here for a crusher. This is an electric furnace that is doing my alloys for me. So again, this is kind of more of this stuff that we need here. And of course, the rolling machine that I need various plates done that I don't really need to keep a whole lot of stuff on. This is kind of that point where you can tell AE, I just need a couple of these things made. Can you make them? And of course, over here, this machine is crafting us various rod recipes. And this is a lathe, and these things are super cool. This side of the room is just random material, random machine stuff like that. So I've got a little carpenter left on over here, and a thermionic fabricator, and a charger that we use to charge things, a couple things like that. The fabricator that I use when I need to craft various things, and I have this redstone controlled especially for when we're turning in the challenges, because I don't want stacks and stacks of various parts of this. I just want a couple of them. So it monitors the amount of stuff that's in this hopper, and when we get one thing sitting in this hopper, it will shut that system off. So it's just one of those kind of, that's how we do that part. All right, then, this line down here is some more auto crafting that we have. So this assembler is the auto crafter that we use for these recipes right here. This assembler is used to craft these recipes right here, and this is a fluid assembler. We move down to this area. This is a metal press that we're using to craft some of the Tech Gun's metal plates or things like that. This is just a metallurgy confuser I needed the other day, so I made one. Of course, some of our elite factories. So we have an elite enriching factory, infusing factory that does the redstone recipes. This one does the diamond recipes. This one does the compressed obsidian recipes, and this one does the osmium ingots. And it gets loud around here for some whatever reason. I'm probably going to have to watch that guy. Where is he? Okay. This is a reaction chamber that I use for various recipes to include crafting the enriched uranium, which is up here, which I stuck it up here because I don't have a other place for it, so that's the way that works. This machine here is making the productivity module ones we need for productivity science. And of course, in an episode or two ago, we crafted all of this, which prompted me to pretty much break my entire factory. But this is the, let me see, efficiency module 3 line. So those are made in these 3 machines here. And this is the speed module 3 line, again, made in these 3 machines here. So I think that's everything in this building on the bottom floor. Top floor should go pretty quickly. We are using the engineer's automated workbench to make science, mainly because of the fact it's roughly the same. I do believe it's actually the same recipe cost per recipe. These are faster to craft, the sciences, than the assemblers are. It's just they're every single one of the sciences. All of the sciences are 3 seconds of craft using these things. Matter of fact, anything you craft in these things, it's 3 seconds of craft. So if you're trying to work with ratios in this mod pack to try to get things to work over a various thing, use these to craft as much things as you can, because they're 3 seconds of craft no matter what. They cost a little bit more power than say an assembler or whatever will, but they're definitely worth the extra time to automate to make things work. So we're doing that very simply with a output chest here with a single spot chest on this output, which is then read by a comparator, and when we get to about 5 red science, it shuts the machine off. All of these are set up that way. Let me get out of the hole. Thank you. And of course, we kind of screwed up and let that run, but you can kind of see this is pretty reasonably quick as far as a crafting recipe is concerned. And how many do you have? I'm not even going to bother you because you're just going to stand there. I am crafting yellow science using the duplicator because this is a considerably cheaper and easier thing to automate than the yellow science regular recipe is. It's still costing me a lot of power. Oops, I didn't want to do that. No, don't. Dang it. Dang it. I don't want to do that. Thank you. Whatever. This is still costing me plenty of power. These guys are super expensive to run on power. It's like 4,000 RF a tick, and they require where is it? You probably started. They require uranium, and they require electrotine and a copy of whatever it is that you're making. But they're definitely worth using as far as this process is concerned because of the ease at which it takes to automate that. Plus, I'm saving on a whole lot of plastic by not doing it the other way. On the other side over here is the 6 laboratories that we have to craft the research. And recently I have updated these guys, and we're going to be doing the next step, which is going to be taking speed modules and putting them in these things. Because these guys, I'm using them for one simple reason. They craft science in 6 seconds. Period. No matter what, doesn't matter what science it is, it's 6 seconds of craft. And then we put a speed module 3 in it, and I can cut that crafting time in half. So this will match that, technically speaking. Now, that's all subject to how much your world is lagging or TPSing or having problems, but when you get to that point, you make these things and quit using the other labs. Just quit using them. They'll drive you up the wall, because it's impossible to try to calculate across the entire system how much time it takes to make things work. It's just easier to use a nice round number like 6 and 3 or 3 and 3 and build the factory off of that. So we need to go ahead and start probably processing some more of these. I need to go ahead and build a few more of them so we can start processing the challenge science, this stuff right here, which I haven't done yet. So I'm going to be building a couple more of these specifically for that, and then we're going to be auto crafting that using the leftover parts. That's why you see bins on either sides of these guys, is that I should have enough science at this point for the most part to be able to do one of those. So I actually probably need to do that. I really didn't want to let the factory run today, but whatever. That's the science building. That's the process of the system. I guess actually there's one more thing up here. Let's go take a look. What's left of the rail yard system is that I'm still hauling plastic over here from my oil processing system, and I'm still using the minecart rail unloading loading system for barrels that I kind of designed a while ago, and I'm about to get rid of this because it's just archaic now. I don't need it. But yes, we do have a bit of rail line left in the world. There's another rail line that we're being used to do various other things over to the oil processing plant. So I think at this point the only thing left is the science storage room that I have. So we have a copy of every of the 6 current sciences that we are producing, and of course my trophies with a couple little dragon heads and a couple of other things. But yeah, this is just where we do this kind of stuff, and we turn in things and hang things out. This is a nice little pretty courtyard that I have, and there's nothing major about yet. So let us run down to the back here, and we'll do a little bit of looking around. I do have at least, what is this, 4 shipping containers. Come on, brain. Shipping containers full of slag plus an ultimate bin full of slag. I've been voiding slag forever, and when this nice new little process of the tiny slag showed up, he immediately just got added to the cactus filter, and I haven't even bothered to worry about it. So there is the last little rail yard out here that manages the sand production for a process that's going on in the oil system. And I think that's probably the next step that we're going to go look at. This is the cactus farm that I used to get all of the green dye that I needed to do that. So let's go out to the oil processing facility here via walking down this line. As you can see, we have rail lines that go all the way out here. And yes, I use, yes, I use water wheels to do a lot of power still. They're what's keeping the lights on in my base. For the majority of the buildings, for the majority of the base, those water wheels have been keeping the lights on. So that's why I did them, because if I run out of fuel in any one of these generation systems, we have problems. Very big problems. So let's go over to the oil processing building, and in here is where we do all of the oil related things. And I did the oil related things over here because initially, I think it's right here, this is where we found the first major amount of oil that we had. I have pumped this entire peninsula islandy thing out of oil. There isn't any oil left in this area. So we're hauling oil back from various places, and we're using other processes to craft oil. But let's go up here and take a look around. We're using 2 distillation towers at this point. This one is processing the oil into the diesel fuel, the lubricant, and the gasoline. And this guy here is, I can't click on you up here. You won't, okay. This guy is doing the coal liquefaction process to turns coal into liquefacted coal that then turns that into diesel, gasoline, and lubricant again. And it is definitely a process to look at if you start to notice that you're running out of oil as far as processing things, because coal is everywhere in this world. Coal is everywhere in here. So we will step down here and we'll do a step through the process very quickly. This is not too terribly hard to do. So this guy, again, he's taking the oil. He's currently backstuffed on lubricant. Oil is stored here, and oil is now being delivered via a quantum entanguloporter that is connected to various pumps and other oil production facilities around the area. That is then sent into this guy, of course, which then does the does the production of various things that is sent into storage tanks over here. So we have a fluid router on the pipelines going to each of the storage tanks. These storage tanks are then using redstone probe connectors, especially these ones, they're just sitting on the side of the tank, which is one of those things that I wished I'd have remembered when I started doing redstone with these things, is if you stick the redstone probe connector or a comparator on the side of a tank or a silo at the level you want the fluid to stop being, so like anything above that, it sends it immediately sets a redstone signal out that will then turn on a machine. So we're saving about that much diesel fuel. Everything else is being cracked into lubricant into these two chemical plants here that is then delivered into the lubricant tanks. Lubricant tanks and gasoline tanks are controlled differently by a batch of redstone underneath the floor, which I can probably get rid of at this point, and probably should. Anyhow, these guys, once they hit a certain level, they're sending all of the come on, lubricant into 4 of these chemical plants that are cracking that into gasoline, and of course gasoline is then being sent into these 4 chemical plants. These guys are making sulfur here, these 2, and these 2 are making plastic, and that is delivered out to the last 2 major, well, this is the last major rail yard that we're still using at this point. So we're delivering sulfur into this little rail loader kind of thingy here, and then they go out both directions over to that thing. So that's the plastic one. I used to have the solid fuel plant right here, but again, once we stopped needing solid fuel, I stopped crafting it. I don't need it for anything anymore. So this is the loading station for my tanks as far as the drums or whatever those things are called. The minecart comes through here, drops them off. They're filled and stuffed back into the minecart and sent back over there once they're all full. So pretty simple, pretty easy. To the next step. This is, let's see, the next step that I want to talk about, of course, is the coal liquefaction process. So over there, we're mining a bunch of coal out of that chunk along with a few other things. There is a excavator here that is mining coal that is, oh, I need to dump that chest. Wow. Anyhow, that coal is being dumped into this crusher. This crusher is then sending the coal into this little bin over here that is then sent into the rest of the system. We are speeding them up with the automatic lubricators because we're right here, so why not? Alrighty then, so that process then goes over into these chemical plants over here, and chemical plants use diesel fuel, steam, and coal to make liquefacted coal, which is then pumped into this distillation tower, which does the same thing that that thing does at different rates. The rates are a little bit different because it's kind of following Factorio. If you've ever liquefacted coal, the process is pretty similar. Now, we all know the other thing that happens with these guys is they create bitumen when you run them. And of course, we have 3 Frogman processors back here running the bitumen using using sand and a little bit of steam that we are crafting in this little bitty reactor to make more oil. So we're producing oil using this process, we're producing oil using that process, or at least oil products, and we're producing oil over at another building, which we will be taking a look at very shortly because we're going to start heading towards that monster in just a little bit. This is something that you can just void if you really want to. However, I kind of look at it like it's a bank, or it's just another source of being able to get a little bit of oil because, again, you might as well just use up everything you possibly can. So I think over here, that's everything I have to talk about. Let's get up here and take a look, make sure. But yeah, as you notice, there's no pollution over here, and there's a whole bunch of pollution pipes down here. We're going to kind of talk about the pollution for just a second. I pumped the pollution down underneath all of the base, so like here, into corridors that run all the way around the underside of the base. So just so you guys get an idea that this side is over here, all of that pollution is pumped down into this area when this is the storage tank for this pollution, and then it is sent into these concrete vents, or these vents, which are then pumped upwards and moved, and they go up a step and then pumped upwards and move and pumped up and go that direction, just so that we can see this end of the building. Because this is the furthest out as far as I'm pumping pollution, because this is a long way from the greenhouse. Just so you know, this is out here. Let's see, the hole is right there. Cool. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a fly job over to that section of the base and finish up a few of these little things, and we'll carry on. So I think that's a good stopping point again, and I will be right back. Quick fly job over to this area, and I really wish they'd quit doing that, but this is the mob farm. This is the monster that I built to get away from not having to go to the nether, because in order to build some of the Tech Gun's machines, namely the reaction chamber, and I think even for that matter, the, hang on, Tech Guns, let's look real quick. The Fabricator, I think, yeah, we needed cybernetic parts. Cybernetic parts, of course, you can get them from killing cyber demons. Or you can build a mob farm and farm loot bags and get all the cybernetic parts you want. So this farm currently is one of my methods for doing various things. And let's turn those dudes down so we can hear ourselves think. This is one of those areas where we're using this farm for multiple reasons and multiple resources. Currently, it is being utilized to make oil, and it is used to make the alien goo that we need to be able to make unusual crystals. It is also over here being utilized to make the emeralds that I need for the challenge sciences. So this is my oil/emerald farm at this point. We've taken every little bit of EMC that we possibly had stored around, and I have been running this thing for a long time. We had, where are they? Tons of these guys full of various materials and things, and of course, as we see, we've got a whole bunch of ultimate bins over here full of various materials, plus a whole lot of those stupid things that we're slowly cycling those around, and I think we might even have another one. Yes, we do. I need to dump that chest. We'll dump that chest later. Ooh, biogun, cool. I am kind of sorting various things out. So the applied energistic system over here is all of these bins have storage buses on the back of them. And this is the miscellaneous, if there's no other place to put things, chest, it puts the stuff in here. So I'm doing that because of these, and because the outcasts that I have unlocked occasionally drop some really, where are they? Nice guns. So like Grim Reapers, Tesla guns, miniguns, things like that. So I'm kind of collecting those because they're kind of fun. I actually want a few more miniguns because I'm slowly and surely changing the turrets out for them, because it's, why not have miniguns in your turrets? So it's kind of funny. Anyhow, the process is pretty simple over here. We're using a molecular assembler that crafts bread, so I'm just trying to condense EMC as much as possible over here. So that crafts bread. The bread is then put into one or two of these condensers over here. We have a looping system that is opening the loot bags, and of course we have an ME interface here that is just pulling the stuff out, putting them in, and this is required because of these stupid things. You have to sit there and continuously cycle them over and over and over again, and I do not want these to leave the system. So I have this, it should be blacklisted where? Right there. These are blacklisted to return, to be able to return into the system. So that way I'm continuously looping one of these things over and over and over and over and over and over again until it finally opens. When it opens, it puts the nether star in there. This way I can also pull out any of the loot bags we might get and put them into these guys so that they're open. God, I thought that was a creeper for a second. I'm a little close to the wall. Anyhow, the other things that we are doing is we're using an automatic placing and breaking system here for the Tech Guns crates that we get. So the weapons crates and the armor crates. This placer has a, I think it's a storage bus or something underneath of it or beside it or wherever, I can't remember exactly. It automatically places the crate down. This block breaker breaks the crate. Whatever it gets is immediately put into that chest, and whatever goes into that chest immediately goes into that condenser. So I don't even know what I'm getting, and I don't care. For most part, what's in those crates is pretty well useless at this point. So we do have a little bit of a trash can going on over here as always, of course, just to kind of get rid of some of the junk that we don't want or stuff that does not have EMC on it. So everything in this building is either going to be used to make oil or is used to make emeralds. So that's how this works. And of course, we have a little bit of an enchanting system over here with various books and pickaxes and things that we've gotten over the period of time. All of those guys were full by the time I got to where I had those condensers. So we took a whole lot of just enchanted books and dumped them into the condensers too. Of course, I have a little bitty XP tap here, so in case I want to repair my armor, everything I have, all of my tools, everything that I can possibly put mending on has mending on it, so I can just repair my equipment, not have to worry about fixing things. So, and of course we have some XP drains in the floor over here, and I have 4 of them just because they empty quicker. The mob farm is pretty simple, pretty easy. I forget exactly who designed it, but it is a water washing system that uses observers. The observers basically control dispensers with water buckets in them, and as the mobs spawn, every so often we have a timer go off up here, I should say a sequencer that goes off up here that controls the entire system. So what happens is we get a redstone signal on the top of this dispenser. There is a observer right underneath of it that detects when that dispenser fires, even though this dispenser doesn't do anything, and then it just sends redstone signal all the way down. So when this thing says go, like it's going to get ready to go here in just a second, that dumps all of the water right now, and then the second tick on the sequencer system here, once it hits it, picks the water back up. Or it should, yeah, picks the water back up so that we're allowing them to spawn. And I'm using a sequencer. Why is it backwards? I need to fix that. Uh-oh. Hey. Don't do that. Okay, that was broken. That's nice. I was wondering why they were a little slow. Now I know why. Okay. Anyhow, I want a long time to where they can sit there and spawn on the system. And all of the spawn pads are made out of obsidian so that they can't dig it. Yes, they can dig the glass, but they kind of just walk off the edge and can't get to anything. There's a water tank underneath of here with a few fans in the sides that washes them into the center. And if we get all the way down, of course, we have a mob masher with fans pushing them into the center that grinds them up into little pieces. There is an absorption hopper underneath the floor that picks all the stuff up and drops it into the energistics system. So that's the mob farm. I contemplate and am still contemplating making another one of these, possibly. I have enough room to put one right next to it. Mainly because of the liquid XP is being used up so quickly in this building. This building is where we're using, again, the Frogman processor, which is one of the other recipes that you can use these things for, to basically make a kind of a, I don't know what you would call this, nasty soup out of mob parts. So we're using bones and rotten flesh and experience, which I'm kind of out of, to make oil. So that's what this building is for. It's just to get rid of excess stuff, mainly because it's getting rid of a lot of the rotten flesh and the bones, which is nice. And it's making use of some stuff that we have quite a bit of. So that's what this little building is for. Okay, on to one of my recently biggest favorite projects, the mechanism fusion reactor. Fusion reactors, fusion reactors, fusion reactors. Is this something you have to do in this world? No, you don't have to. I did it because I wanted to. So we have a mechanism reactor in here at this point. We've got him running. It's been running non-stop since we lit it. I did turn it down a little bit. We're only making 316 RF a tick right now, 316,000 RF a tick right now, because this thing is getting kind of full. So I turned it down so that it can just kind of sit here and run and idle, and as we need more power, we can do the various things. The system is controlled by this chemical infuser down here, which is taking deuterium and tritium and processing that into DT fuel. And how I control the speed of it is I remove speed upgrades out of here. Yes, I am totally 100% aware I can throttle this thing using this. I want to do it this way because it allows me to be able to kind of make sure we're not going to break things in the process, because if you let these things cool off too much, they stop working. In order to fire these things, in order to make them run, you have to put a, what is it? Do we have any of those around here? I think I used them all up, or at least I put them somewhere else. You have to put a hull ram in them full of DT fuel and then shoot a laser, which is what this whole system is for. We have laser amplifiers, lasers over here with plenty of power, so it is all fueled up and ready to go in case this thing dies. All I got to do is flick that lever after I put one of those things in there, and it will start back up. We are inputting, again, the fuels into various parts, so there's an input on both sides of the reactor. There are outputs on there's an output on the top, and I think there's an output on the bottom. I did, for a while, try to think I was trying to fuel this thing. That's the reason why we had a problem, is it crashed for whatever reason, because this thing was not getting enough power. Anyhow, we're using all of that energy and placing it into an induction matrix that is full of the, what is it, this stuff? I think they're the advanced. Did I do advanced or did I do elite? I think I did elite, actually. Elites, these guys. They're full of induction cells and induction providers. I think there's 2 induction providers. Actually, we can see the statistics. Yes, we have 25 cells and 2 providers, so we've got 25 of those guys in here and 2 of those in here. So we're good for like 3 million out, in and out, and we're good for a considerable amount of storage. Actually, it should say right where. Yeah, 640 gig RF. So plenty of storage. Of course, I built the building to kind of house the reactor and the thing, and I'm using these cool little force fields to act as a door. I was like, well, you know, we have them, we might as well use them. So let's go ahead and click the button. There's a little bit of redstone magic underneath here. So let's start with the simple, easy process, which is the deuterium, which I am currently crafting in this building here. This building is mainly, the whole process is run with water. So it's kind of a somewhat little bit of a story. This process is very simple. You just use electric pumps with a filter upgrade in them that filters the heavy water from the regular water. That is then fed into an electrolytic separator that makes deuterium and another product. I forget exactly what it is at this point. Doesn't really matter. The deuterium we're then sending into basic gas tanks to act as storage, and that goes into the next building. This process is very simple, so this building ended up with a bit more decoration than the other one. Over to the other side of the process, this is where we make tritium. Tritium is a little bit longer of a process to craft. It starts again with just water. We just need a whole lot of water. We take that water, we stuff it into a thermal evap controller, a thermal evap plant, to take the water and turn it into brine. The brine is then sent into this thermal evaporation plant that takes the brine and turns it into liquid lithium. Liquid lithium is then stored in that tank and is dropped down into these rotary condensators under deconcentrating mode, which means we're taking lithium and turning it, or taking liquid lithium and turning it into a gas. That gas is then fed into the solar neutron activators, which are then turning that into tritium. Tritium is then stored in all of these tanks and sent over there. This building is the problem where you have to kind of pay attention to how these things work. Most of us tend to make this system using solar-powered thermal evaporation plants. And I built them tall because I wanted 2 stacks sticking out of the top of this building. That structure it's a multi-block that you can build in many different ways. I am heating these things using resistive heaters. So I currently have them all set up to about 150 RF a tick on both sides. I don't think I need 5 of them doing it, but I've left it in here because they're stupid cheap to run this way. Do not run these. If you're planning on doing this, do not run these off solar. You will not be able to keep enough production up, at least with this monstrosity and the way it works. So all of this is overbuilt. On this side in particular, all of this is overbuilt. I should never run out of tritium. I should have an excess forever. I built it that way on purpose because I don't want to have to come back over here and fiddle with this thing. So that is the reactor. That is the way we're powering the base currently. And if I so choose, I can crank that thing up to make about 1 million, a little bit more than 1 million, almost 1.5 million RF a tick. So, alrighty then. We're getting close. We're getting almost done with what I want to do as far as this area is concerned. So let's go look at one of the old projects, which is the villager breeder, which is currently off. I have the 2 seed villagers, I should say, the 2 parents separated so that they can't breed anymore. There's still a villager down there, I hope. This design can be found all over the internet or all over YouTube. It's a kind of a modified, I forget, Impulse SV design, where instead of having all the villagers kind of congregate into the corner, the babies congregate into the corner, they just are capable of running off the edge, and then the water delivers them into the sorting system. I'm sorting babies out instead of sorting adults because I don't want the adults to be able to breed later on. So anything that makes it into this chamber here is going to be a baby that grew up. So all of the babies should be just, like I said, they should run off the edge here after they grow up, or I should say after they're born, or whatever it is that they do. They come into a growing up chamber here, and this is a kind of an important thing because when a baby grows up, it loses the items in its inventory. I don't want them breeding in that tank. So What happens, if you guys don't know, is villagers, if you feed them food and you provide them with a kind of a structure like a village, so the village is technically down there, there's 6 doors that have sky access, meaning they can see the sky, and a villager down there in those doors. It's a kind of a glitch where the system, as long as you have food, 2 seed villagers, and 1 down there, this thing will produce villagers forever, which is a problem. That's why it's off right now, because I keep coming over here and sorting through them and killing them, but whatever. I have a sorting system over on the end of here, so once the baby villagers grow up, I can then collect them in a minecart, bring them down into this area, see what kind of a trade they have. If they have a good trade, we can unlock them with various processes, parts, things. If they suck, they go out the door into a killing chamber where basically there is a, let's see if I can get out here. There is an activator rail right there, which when a minecart rolls over an activator rail, it dumps out whatever's in the minecart, if it's an entity like a pig or a villager or something, onto the nearest available open block, which is that block right there. It then runs over that. The Minecraft then runs over the detector rail, which sends off a little bit of fancy redstone that pulls that block back and sends them for a swift drop down to bedrock, pretty much. So I do not want to kill them by hand because I don't want to have them stop breeding, which they will do over a period of time. So I do not use this anymore. I haven't used it in a while. It's just here because I don't really feel like tearing it down. I think that is done as far as this is concerned. Again, if you guys want to know how to do this, this is all over YouTube. This has been around forever. 112, when 112 came out, this was one of the biggest features of 112 as far as vanilla. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of tutorials on how to build those things. Let's go over to one of the last places that we have in the main overworld, and that is the Spaceport. And I probably should get a gun out in case something's over here. I built this building totally anticipating of filling it up full of various things, and I never did. Anyhow, these are the 2 reactors that I have set up still. These are the only 2 reactors that I'm using. Basically, what I'm doing with the reactors is I'm using them as portable power. They're good for, these reactors are good for like 5,000 RF a tick, so that's more than enough to run a crusher or a few other things, excavator. And this is a quantum entangle porter that is going to the moon, and the 1 crusher that's left over there that is doing the mining for the osmium and the unusual ore. And it looks like we're probably backstuffed again on unusual ore. That's fine. That's the only reason why these are here. I could have put these on the moon. It could have done various things. It doesn't really matter. It's just that's how I did it. In this corner is the production for the advanced rocketry. What are we looking at? Advanced rocketry oxygen, which you have to take the electrolytic separator and use hydrogen or oxygen, separate that out. You run it through a purifier that then turns this into, from mechanism gases into the advanced rocketry gases or fluids or whatever they are, which, I mean, however that works, that is then on this endpoint sent to a gas charge pad that I use to fill my very, very cool, wonderful armor, which is what we'll look at here in a second. Thank you. There you go. Get out of here. Again, on the other side, we're taking the hydrogen. We're turning that into liquid hydrogen that we're running through a chemical reactor from advanced rocketry to make rocket fuel, which should be in that line. So this is another thing that I did get asked several times, is how am I still using the Tech Gun's armor instead of this stuff? And it's a very, very interesting thing. It used to be that you had to use a, I don't know, used to be you could use this machine here, this chemical reactor, I think, to make your armor work. You had to take a max tier tank and some other thing, I forget exactly what it was, put all the pieces through the system, or at least I think just the chest plate, and run it through the advanced or the chemical reactor, and it would apply the ability to be able to do this. In these system now, or in the system in this pack, or in the way the mod works now, there is an enchantment called Airtight Seal. An Airtight Seal, once you get that enchantment on all 4 of your armor pieces, you get a top tier tank capacity in the chest plate. So that's how I'm doing this. That's how it works. That's how I've got the cool, really, really decent armor and not having to fool with this mess. So it's just something villagers, again, I think I got the majority of the airtight seal from that mob farm for what it's worth. So what are we shooting at? Oh, we still have a guy over there hanging out. Anyhow, the top of this thing, we have the basic base protection. We have a bunch of turrets. And on top of this, we have our launch pad with my little rinky-dink rocket that I haven't used since we've been to the moon. So we're going to start playing with this here fairly soon. It gets so loud out here. It's ridiculous. But that's how we work this mess. Did he manage to get dead? No, he climbed. That's how they're getting up there. Oh, I was wondering how they were getting on the roof. Duh. I could not figure out for the life of me how they were getting on top of this roof. Okay, well now I know. Nice. All right. I think at that point we're getting to the point where we need to go look at some other areas. Hi, bye. What are you trying to do? Where did you go? That's one of the big ones, isn't it? Yeah, I'm gonna leave him. I don't care at this point. I ain't got time for that. I think as far as that goes, that's everything in the main base except for the greenhouse. So we're going to go check a couple of things out real quick just to kind of look at them. I do have a controller in here. We're not going to Primus. We don't need to go up there. There's nothing up there to look at other than a couple of excavators, I think. So let's go to the end. All right. The end. The end. The end. Once this... I'm going to say this. Once you get these things, this is what you do with your solars. Okay? This is what you do with your solars because it's never nighttime in the end. And every one of these guys in the end makes a considerable amount of power. So once you get that quantum entangle porter, this is what you do. Just as a heads up. Regardless of how much of a pain they are. This is what you do, just so you guys know. There's like 50,000 RF a tick right here in this. So anyhow, on to this project over here. This is the energetic generator that I had built a long time ago, and it did serve its purpose for quite a while. We used it for quite a bit. It is I forget what it is. 9? No, it's not 9. It's 12. Yeah, it's 12. 12 different energetic generators. They all have their normal control on it. This thing makes about 70,000 RF a tick, I think, if I remember correctly, and it is controlled basically through the rest of the system. We have redstone control all over the place based on where things come from and how much things go. Look these up on the internet. They're a lot of fun to play with. They're definitely worth building if you do the other crazy thing that I have done, which is an ender farm, enderman kind of thing. Go over here and take a look at this really quickly. This thing is I really need to tear this down and rebuild it. I've modified it many different times. I've actually made the spawn platform a lot smaller because I'm trying to convince them that they need to go down the hole. But if you guys don't know, this is one of the many ways you can farm enderman, and I'm doing it this way because it's just funny. I could do this the fans and just spawn platform way. Dude, you better get away from my guy. Thank you. Endermen don't like ender mites. They try to kill them. So if they can see an ender mite in their line of sight, they will run towards it. These guys run towards it. They fall down a deep, nasty pit that takes a little bit of their life off. And then they end up into a grinding system down here where we're just basically taking them and shoving them into a mob masher that has looting and sharpness on it. And that takes care of the problem. I've got... Excuse me. This is where I'm getting ender pearls. This process runs very well. If you want a lot of ender pearls, that mob masher is the way to kill them for certain. So I can come over here and just kind of idle and watch a YouTube for 30 minutes and make like 10,000 of these things. So it's super good. It also produces a lot of experience points, which is great. And I am contemplating rebuilding it just to a normal process because I would like to get the spawns down on the floor as far as we can go. This works. It's just it could work a lot better if I would have built it a little better. And when I built this, I didn't have creative flight, which I am getting from this guy right here. I had the jetpack, so it's kind of hard to place the little blocks that you use to place things out in the void with a jetpack. So it ended up being not where I wanted it. I could build it down, but I really don't care. So let's get out of here. That's just the It's one of those, you want to build something. I've always wanted to build one, and I built one, so why not? Okay, so with the remaining time we have left in this deal, I think we've gone quite a long time as it is. I want to speak briefly on the, come on world, load up. I want to speak briefly on the greenhouse. We've done a lot of talking about the greenhouse. We've seen the greenhouse. I've continuously messed with the greenhouse. This greenhouse, there are things I wish I would have done differently, but it does do what I need it to do at this point. It's been an experiment. It's been a process. I didn't know how this mess was going to work. I had no clue how chimney mods worked. I had no idea how any of that stuff works. So we've been kind of learning as we go with this process. So let's just kind of walk through it very quickly. Of course, we have a greenhouse with greenhouse glass so that all of my crops grow all of the time. Yes, I know I could have just put greenhouse glass over each one of these little areas, but it would have looked funny. Trust me, it would have looked funny. So this is the tank. This is where we store all of the pollution from the factory so that the plants and the trees can eat it all up, or at least the carbon. Down here is, of course, the basement area for the farms, the forestry farms that we're using to grow all of this stuff. And so, oh God, is it springtime yet? Maybe? Awesome. Okay. These are just little chutes where the pollution is delivered up through, and this is how I can access various things. Down here, on each one of the 4 sides, all 4 sides have a pollution management system where pollution comes in from a location in the base. And on this side in particular, there are two slots, two lines. That's vents. They come into these chimneys. I had waterfall systems. I had all kinds of other stupid ideas as far as how to make this work well, and I found that the best possible way to, best possible way to get the pollution to spread out and move away and go away, because this was acting like a tank and it was not what I wanted, was to just deliver the pollution to a vent as quickly as possible, have the vents and the pumps move the pollution away from the central area as quickly as possible, and get it into that building as quickly as possible. This has made everything work perfectly. I don't have any backstuffing now. I used to have a major problem underneath the smelting area with backstuffing and problems with pollution, because if you let pollution build up too much in an area and it can't expand, it blows up and it destroys things, and that's not good. So every one of these sides, let me through the door, has this kind of a system going on in it. So there's a hallway that comes in underneath here. We can take a real quick look. This hallway goes out to the generators and the cobblestone generation thing, plus part of the factory and this things over there. This hallway is fed that direction, and we'll talk about this in a second. Again, on this side over here, we're pulling pollution out of, I still need to finish this, but we're pulling pollution out of the Emc Production area and the Sulfur area. And on this side over here, we're pulling pollution out of this side of the base, so the plate press area, I believe, plus the advanced system and the sulfuric acid, I think, or whatever. Some of the stuff is, it's all over the place. We have hallways that extend out in every direction, and we will go look at the other end of the big one very shortly. How I'm handling some of the other pollution. Well, if you notice, I have a system here from we're basically taking the pollution pumps that we have here, and we're pumping the pollution back down once it hits, we'll go upstairs real quick, once it hits the center, because once it gets up there, it can't do anything. We pump it back down, and in this process, and this has been known about for a really long time, actually, to make sure my magnet's off, it's not magnet. This has been known about for a really long time. You can itemize the pollution blocks if you hit it with flowing water, meaning you take a dispenser and you run water into it sideways, it will break the block. You can then collect said block with hoppers, so like I could put hoppers underneath all of this floor or whatever. I actually need to change this up and make it work a little better, but the water breaks the pollution then drops down. There's an absorption hopper right there, so we can watch it. The absorption hopper grabs the pollution, puts it into these guys right here, these storage bins, and I'm actually getting a little bit backlogged on sulfur again. The carbon pollution is sorted from the three types of carbon pollution is sorted from the 3 types of sulfur pollution. The carbon pollution is then deposited in 3 of the 4 corners into a block placer with a lever on it, and it just dumps that out as quickly as possible and sends it back into the system so that it eventually gets used up. The sulfur pollution, as we can see down there, is then up, you know where you're at, delivered over to this little thing here, where it is then converted into, did you work? There you go. Where it's converted into polluted water. The polluted water is then converted into, man, I need to do some stuff. We're out of water storage, whatever. Polluted into, man, I cannot talk today. Converted into polluted water and then sent over to these two guys where we've already discussed about already to make sulfur. So I do not wash filters at all anymore, period. If I wash a filter, for that matter, I wash it in one of those things so that I can get polluted water. So all of the pollution, for the most part in the base at this point, is being utilized as a resource and has been for a really long time. So this is a super uber cheaty way of getting rid of pollution, especially if you're in a void world. Just saying. It takes it a while to turn back into an item or back into a pollution block. You can drop it off in a void world and just dump it in the void and it goes away. So just, you know, whatever. Alrighty then. Actually, no, we need to go this direction really quickly. This one, yes. Close the door. And we'll go just take down walk down the initial original hallway. There is a massive lava lake, as I spoke, underneath the base, so I'm pulling all of the carbon out of that lava lake and delivering it to this area. It looks like we might have a... What are you doing, dude? Whatever, I don't care. Again, this is some more of the hallways. We pump all of the pollution down, and we use the cobblestone vents and cobblestone pumps, or the chimney mods, parts to move the stuff sideways. This is a drone killer. That's why that's there. And of course, this is the basement for the smelting facility. I built this basement thinking I just couldn't manage to get enough throughput through those things, and I have filled this room up quite a bit, as you can see from the cobblestone on the walls. But it turned out to just be a throughput problem with the vents in the main greenhouse area. This all goes, again, all the way to the other end of the base. The coke ovens, which we've seen a few times. I don't even know if I can still get to the coke ovens anymore through here. Yep, I can. This is the room where I am controlling my coke ovens from. So this is just basically a tank that has a whole bunch of vents and chimneys and pumps moving the stuff sideways up into that hallway. And we do have quite a bit of creosote. I guess I could make a bunch of stuff. This is, again, just storage inputs. I just toss in some coal and come back later on and have a whole bunch of stuff. And we fly out of this area. And that's where my coke ovens have been ever since I set them up. I've never put them up so that they could pollute this area. I was down here wandering around one day, and if we can go see it, I'll show you guys very quickly where and how I found that. Is because early on in game I was having massive problems with digging hoards. So I got down into the general basement area, or I should say the underground. This is one of my initial XP farms. So there's a skeleton spawner in there that I used to make things. They've since destroyed this thing. I don't think any of it works anymore. But we have a mine shaft underneath the base, and I spent a lot of time down here. Hello, friends. Will you guys quit tearing up my area, please? Goodness. Anyhow, I spent a lot of time underneath the base down here cleaning up, lighting everything up. Because I had access to villagers, I made tons and tons of glowstone nooks, as we can see if I hit this. That the majority of all the stuff underneath my base is lit up. That's why we have things spawn where they do. That's why the mob farm does as well as it does. And that's how things have been. So I did manage to find that cave. You guys quit breaking my glowstone. A lot of persistence of mobs down here. That's not good. I heard him. Where'd he go? Whatever. I'll have to come down here and kill a whole bunch of mobs because they're down here doing the normal thing of screwing up my dang spawn rates again. But whatever. Can I get back out of here, please? The entirety, what I wanted to kind of say is the entirety of my base, or at least the underside of it, is lit. As much as I can stand it is lit. I spent hours and days down there cleaning up making sure that everything is lit because I had the thought I was going to build one of these. That's why the mobs spawned so well in here. It's not the design of this farm. It's the fact I spent so much time doing that. So put all that junk away. That should go away. And I think with that, we're getting to the point where I can say I can call this an episode. Yeah. Cool. We are, thank God it's spring. Oh. And I said it last episode, and I'm going to say it again. These guys right here, if you hate snow and rain, get this. Get it automated. Get it over with. It doesn't rain. It doesn't snow. You don't have problems. So, anyhow, yes, it's spring. Thank God. Oh, I hate this. I hate wintertime. It's just, everything goes nasty. You got this stupid little particle in your face and all that kind of crap. So, whatever. Anyhow, guys, I think with that, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you guys that have subscribed to the channel recently. And I want to say thank you to all of the streamers and all of the other new people that have picked this pack up. It has really made a big difference on my channel specifically. And I know that it's made a big difference on some of the other YouTubers' channels, so I do appreciate it. Golrith, again, this thing's awesome. I don't know when I'm going to quit it. I'm having problems stopping. I'm addicted. Someone please help. And yeah, anyway, on all that kind of stuff. On that note, guys, I appreciate it. There will be, hopefully, a download of the world in the description below shortly. I'm going to have to do a little bit of cleanup in the world, make things a little bit easier for you guys to see. But until next time, thank you guys. I will see you in the next one.